Welcome to the ultimate podcast experience with conversations about politics, religion, finances, and the meaning of life, and all the other subjects and stories that Nana told you not to bring to the kitchen table, and a whole lot more. Join our hosts, James the Rep, You'll Be Back, and Sam the Slippery Smooth Producer as they settle the ultimate question, have y'all heard about this?
I think he is a dirt dauber farmer.
It's true. I'm about to get conned again.
He had a little work done.
I've been feeding that rabbit.
Sam's like, well, I saw myself get out of the shower in the mirror one time.
No, she had driven with him in the back.
Like a hillbilly on a stack of flatbread.
I've been married to my wife now for almost 20 years, and she's really tired of hearing some of these jokes.
And we're rolling.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, my alarm's going off.
Wake
It's
up.
too early to be doing a podcast. I'm telling you what.
Wake up,
So for our
James.
listeners, you tell us when you listen to this one if anything sounds different to you. We've had a series of life events that have required us not to meet on Tuesday morning at 7, but on Thursday morning at 6. And here we are. James was slightly tardy this
Oh
morning.
my goodness,
James
Yule's just right in the...
I said slightly tardy.
Just air it out there, Yule.
Slightly tardy,
my
but...
goodness. I was in the drive-through line getting coffee.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Oh.
The point is, we're earlier than we typically would be.
Yeah.
We're still alive. We're still awake. But I don't know. Let's see if we're hitting on all cylinders.
How can you be this cheerful at 6 o'clock in the morning?
Oh, I'm cheerful because this is a special day for two reasons.
It's a very special day.
One is this is the month anniversary of our podcast.
Oh, right on.
Oh, wow.
So we released our first episode March 7th,
Dude, we got busy fast and hit hard.
and it's April 7th. And then also, it is my birthday.
All right.
Happy birthday, Sam.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This changes everything.
We talked about my birth year. Now it's my birthday.
Well, look, I want to commend y'all, too, because one thing that maybe goes unnoticed about the work that goes into these, and I'm not calling this work. We've said this is a lot of fun to do, but
Yeah.
we've been really consistent. From the day that we recorded our first episode, we have not missed a week of recording.
Yeah, that's right. And
and
the
we meet-
content's been, well, from our reviews say our content is outstanding, so.
Speaking
Do we have
about
any more reviews?
Why, yes, we do, Yule. We got one from Clob of Dirt. This is on Apple
That's not
Podcasts.
that Cloud guy, is
Is
it?
that an
No, I
Irish
don't think
guy?
this is Cloud.
An Irish potato farmer. Cloud
So-
of dirt.
So yeah, on Apple Podcasts, we got a review from Clob of Dirt. You can go read it for yourself. It was a 5-star.
Oh,
So a classy individual. And they said, he or she said, they didn't gender the Clob of Dirt. So he or she said, constantly finding myself laughing throughout. Truly an enjoyable podcast. Well, thank you,
Nice.
Clob.
Well, right on.
I think
so
it is
Clob,
too.
if you would like to reply to our guess, I'm going to make an educated guess that Clob of Dirt is a male, a man, or a guy.
Wow.
Maybe.
You know what?
Why?
I think it's like if it were a woman, it'd be Clob of Rib.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, man was made from dirt. Woman was
Somebody's
made
been
from
reading the
man.
Bible reading.
I think that it's a man, and I could be wrong.
That's true.
Cloud of
He
dirt.
could be a he. I'm going to refer to him as he until I'm proven wrong. I think he is a dirt dauber farmer. That's where they come from.
Is that what they're called? Dirt daubers?
That's what I called them growing up. Did they have a scientific name?
Levon Helm had
non-
an album about a dirt farmer. Did you
Oh,
ever
Are you
hear
talking
that?
about dirt daubers, like the little...
A dirt
Flying
dauber,
thing.
as far as what I've been told, and I think this is true. But they build the kind of the dirt nests on the side of the house and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, but I don't think they sting. They look like a wasp.
They do.
mimic. So I've always thought, well, that's a non-stinging wasp. But I've never tested the theory as to whether or not they can really sting.
That would not
Do y'all
be
know? Can
advisable.
I don't think they can.
If we were to Google them, like if I Googled wasp, we'd find a wasp. If we
Yeah.
Googled dirt dauber, is that going to
I bet you it
show
would.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Dirt
Yeah.
dauber.
We also got a review, and this is a celebrity. We're getting a lot of celebrity
Wow.
reviews, by the way.
A lot of attention.
We got a
Is this
review.
like an international celebrity?
I guess.
Again,
I mean,
or
it's just word of
Australia?
mouth. One celebrity will tell another celebrity. They must, text each other. I guess.
Of course, they're on a group chat.
But we got a
Chat.
we got a review from Dolly Parton.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
yeah, because
my
we were
goodness.
talking about the Smokies. I guess she heard about it. I think we
Yeah.
actually mentioned Dolly Parton in the
We did.
last podcast, but
I think we should mention Dolly Parton every podcast. There's probably not a greater American.
that's true. So Dolly Parton writes, "Howdy, HYHAT podcast team. So glad y'all gave a shout out to my beloved Smoky Mountains. Your podcast always makes me hoot with laughter. I'm on each episode like
She
a
hoots?
hillbilly. I'm on each episode like a hillbilly on a stack of flapjacks."
Wow.
She says, "I can only give you 1 star though because Sam is a Novitarian."
Oh my goodness.
Sam,
I'm holding us back. That's
ruining it.
That's
So,
the problem.
all right. So we've got 2 5-star reviews and a 4-star review that is the equation of 4
4 1-star
one-star reviews. So we're getting there.
It's growing.
So
One
hers was a
more
4-star
one-star review.
or 1 star.
She only gave us 1 star. She wanted
okay.
to give us more, but you're
If
vegan.
if I just hadn't made my dietary decisions,
I'll tell you what, Sam, if you get heavily involved in her book program for children, I think she
I was about
may.
to thank her for that. Actually,
I'm telling you, she's wonderful.
no, I love the Imagination Library. Huge shout out.
Yep.
Free books for your kids, like almost entire childhood or something
Yeah.
like that. That is a great. I'm telling you, I really appreciate celebrities that do that versus just
Get on Twitter,
giving
and just,
a bunch
like,
of
spout off about who you should
or just
vote
like
for.
I mean, that's a lot more of a difference than just giving a ton of money to United Way or something like that. You know what I mean? Like
I don't
if they're
know. I
actually
mean,
doing
I'd have
something.
to see the books. Are they like indoctrinating kids at an early age? Because a lot of children's books now are starting to do that.
I want to
Like,
watch What I Say since Dolly is leaving his reviews. I want to try to
that's
no,
probably
I think Dolly probably vets those books pretty good.
they're pretty good. Occasionally, we'll just kind of I vet them very heavily when I get them in the mail, and there's a few that are definitely trying to show more like, and I don't mean this in a negative way. Like they're just trying to show more like diverse perspectives, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
look, diversity is a thing. I mean, it
It is,
happens.
yeah.
It's a reality of life, but it is interesting when you start seeing, I call it the diverse flavor of the week, whether it's
Yeah.
commercials or sitcom. And we don't watch a lot of TV anymore. We really don't. My kids do. They watch a lot of YouTube videos of grown men dropping like balloons and then screaming like they're sick. Like, ah! I hate it. I mean, like,
Can I drop this cannonball off this 80-foot story building?
They
Are you
do
talking
it.
about How Ridiculous?
that
Oh,
crap.
the
yeah.
Australian guys.
Dude Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
All those
Are
guys.
good.
My
Those are
kids
good.
love
Perfect's
that.
good.
And I'm like,
My kids like it too.
I was like, guys, if everything's exciting, then one day nothing's going to be exciting.
True.
You know, like,
That's a good
way.
philosophy.
Yeah, that's
you're
great
going to see a
thing.
bowling ball drop from a Boeing jet and be like,
Well, I
I've
remember
seen that
once being a
before.
kid. I think it was on summer break or something. We'd gone on vacation and we'd had like all kinds of fun. And then I got home and my neighbor Jason came over and said, "Hey, you want to come spend the night?" And I was like, "Dad, can I go spend the night?" And he's like, "No, you've had enough fun." And I remember thinking, "What does that even mean? Like, what do you?"
and then
You
later
had no fun.
you were redeemed by a country musician who said, I ain't ever had too much fun. You know that one?
I never heard that.
Oh my goodness.
But I think it was good though for me just to go in the backyard and just kind of kick around for a little bit, just be
Yeah.
bored.
Oh, I used to be so bored all the time. Just have to like pick up sticks and pretend they were like
Pick up
swords
sticks.
and stuff.
We had a pool growing up, and it, typical like 20 by 40 in-ground pool. Very fortunate to have that as a kid.
20 by 30. Wow.
Yeah, I mean just a
It's a nice
regular
size.
regular pool,
Yeah.
and had a little small diving board and had
Yes.
a little slide on it. The slide kind of had a little curve to it, but a 6-foot slide. And over in Florence, Alabama, was the water slide, and now this is one of these walk up with the mat
Yes.
and go down it. So we would always in the summer beg to go to the water slide, and my parents would be like, "You've got a water slide in the backyard." You know?
Grateful little kid.
And like I remember one summer, I don't think I got in the pool the whole summer.
Dang.
Just
Your dad spent $10,000 bonus.
That's
putting
probably
in
when I
place.
discovered like video games or something.
You have a slide in the back. There's a meme like that where it's like, we have that at home, and it's like that at home, and it's like this like roll like basic. So I'm trying to think of an example.
That was
of
the
it.
worst. That was the worst answer to any question when you were a kid. We've got that at home. It's like no.
Wasn't that an Eddie Murphy bit on Mom, I want to go to McDonald's. You go, we got McDonald's at home.
We got McDonald's at home.
2 pieces of loaf bread, a hamburger patty fried in the skillet. He said, as soon as it hit the loaf bread turned pink with grease. Like, here's your McDonald's. Shut up. Eat it.
Hey, we have McDonald's at home.
So I don't know if we want to put this in the. I don't even know what we're talking about today.
Oh, I've got something.
Are we doing Crazy Neighbors? Or are we doing something else?
Crazy Neighbors.
Oh,
would be
we
good.
I'm up for what. I don't
could do
really
it
have
all.
anything planned.
So have y'all been to Dollywood?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Dollywood's great.
We took the kids there one time and really, I mean, had a good time. You know, it's I tell people it's kind of like between Lake Winnie and Six Flags.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know,
That's actually perfect.
Like, I will say this: maybe it's a limitation on how big it can be, the space, whatever. But the roller coasters are shorter and smaller, but they're intense. It's like
dude.
she gets a lot done in 30 seconds. You know. But we went, and the one thing I think the thing I remember the most about it was we were starving getting there. Like, we didn't eat. I don't know why we didn't eat. We were just trying to get there. So by the time we got through the gate, we were hangry. And this is kind of in the middle of COVID a little bit, so people were short staffed, and we go and probably wait 40 minutes on a
The
pizza.
$18 corn dog.
I was gonna say that's
A
just
pe-
what Dolly wanted.
I mean, or maybe some like fried chicken
It's like
fingers or
sucking
something.
you in.
She wants you to be hangry.
I'll give your kids a book, and here's a $12 corn dog.
Yeah, it was to the point that I'm like telling my like I'm getting mean to my family. We're not running anything until we eat. Starving. But the rest of the day we had a good time. Dollywood is a cool place. Dolly's a cool girl, woman, man.
She's old
She's
now.
an icon.
She's old now.
She's an icon. She doesn't look any older than she always has.
I mean, yes,
I
true.
think she sold her soul to the devil.
No. Dolly self admits why she looks good.
Plastic surgery.
She tells you. She goes, "I'll be the first to tell you. I've had a lot of work done. That's how I look like this." You know.
I'm surprised that the whole industry of plastic surgery hasn't like removed itself from the moniker plastic surgery.
Yeah.
It seems like nowadays you would just call it something else.
They may, people younger than us may. We're just, it's our,
I
Xerox.
think getting work done. I think that's
Getting work
kind of
done,
what.
yeah.
Oh, she's had a lot of work done, or yeah.
So rest his soul. You know, we lost a few years ago Kenny Rogers, who was a very close friend to Dolly. I say a few years. I don't. Could have been more recent than that. It was. I think he died during the whole pandemic time, right? I mean, not of COVID, but
I don't remember when he died.
But it's been within the last couple of years. But anyway, you know, Kenny had a little work done, and it did not fare as well for him as it did for Dolly. It totally, like Kenny Rogers totally changed his look of his face. His eyes were really, really strange looking after his plastic surgery.
It's generally not a positive. It's generally not a positive.
Yeah. You know, just free advice to anyone listening. Plastic surgery is probably not a great thing for men. Facial plastic
for
surgery.
sure. Yeah.
Facial plastic surgery.
For sure.
Remember that scene in that Tim Allen movie, The Christmas with the Cranks, when he gets the Botox and then meets his wife?
Well, like, I don't know, it just always makes people's like the proportions of their face look weird. Has that guy who's the guy, he does music? This is where
Bruce Jenner?
I have no knowledge.
I mean,
Bruce
Caitlyn.
Jenner.
I mean,
demonetized.
He's a
There.
Fox News contributor now. Have you seen
my
that?
goodness.
Is he really?
He's the
One of these
conservative
days,
voice.
we have what now? A couple of hundred listeners, and we're grateful for those. But if we ever do have like millions of listeners, and they're going back and listening to what they're like, these rednecks, these narrow-minded rednecks. They don't like Caitlyn Jenner. They don't like that. Like, no, we don't.
We don't.
There you go. I mean, do you like mental illness?
Yeah.
Are we?
That's what it is.
Hey, look, I bring that up in
the
a very sharp.
DS5, is that right? Is that what it's called?
I bring that up in a
Yeah.
very sharp way for this reason. We are proclaiming that we're going to talk about the things that you're not supposed to talk about, and up until now, we've just been kind of yucking it up. You know. All right, we're on our 5th podcast. We're about to actually get on some material that's maybe a little. I don't want to say controversial, but people have different opinions on.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's funny in our intro when Sam says things that your Nana would not let you bring to the table. I remember just thinking, my grandmother was an old Southern woman who kind of cussed like a sailor, and you could really say anything in front of her,
Right.
and she thought it was great.
There's
So-
some grandmas like that for sure.
my grandmother was not. My grandmother on my dad's side was kind of interesting. If anything was ever said kind of out of the way, with her mouth would literally drop open. Like, it was the funniest thing as a kid to kind of see who would say that and then watch her react, because it's always the same reaction.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of stuff you couldn't talk about. We could have never talked about Bruce Jenner becoming a woman. Like,
Well,
it wouldn't. It
at
wouldn't.
that table.
Wasn't Bruce Jenner? Wasn't he the like woman of the year? But he hadn't been a woman for the whole year. Is that the one?
I don't know, but I saw this meme of it was.
That's the funny one.
I saw this meme of Howard Cosell. Do you remember Howard Cosell?
Oh, yeah.
Monday Night Football.
Howard Cosell.
And he was doing. It was a screen grab. Howard Cosell in the middle. It had OJ Simpson on the left, and it had Bruce Jenner on the right. And he's got his mic, and he goes, "Folks, I've just looked into the future, and do I have some crap to tell you?"
Yeah, so just a few hot takes off that. Love the banter between Howard Cosell and Muhammad Ali. They had a great friendship over the years,
Yeah.
the way that they interacted. But here's my hot take: OJ did it.
Of course,
and,
he did it.
and Bruce is a man. So
Right.
There's our
Right.
controversial statement.
Bruce
That'd be an
trained him.
interesting one to talk about. There's some interesting facts about the OJ trial that could be him covering for his son. Have you ever heard that theory?
No, I've not heard that, but
It's really compelling. It's really compelling. Like, so it kind of makes sense why he's like wrote the, like, if I did it, and those kind of like teasing the fact he did it, even though it's really compelling.
Sam, hold on.
It's really compelling.
Are you telling me after 20-something years, I remember where I was the day that verdict came down. I was in Tuscaloosa, out of college, so long time ago, like 98-ish. You're telling me that I've waited this long to hear that someone other than OJ Simpson
It may have been
potentially did
OJ's
this?
son. It might have been.
No way.
We might have to talk
I
about
mean,
that.
that's not like completely like crazy.
Like, think about your son does something
that's like the
terrible.
plot of every Matlock episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's so true.
I did it, but I wanted to protect you.
yeah. No, it's true. Like, I don't know. There's an interesting theory. I'll have to do a little bit of like digging and figure out where I heard that theory and like do a little digging on the facts of the case. But
I
it'd be
can't
fun to
remember
bring
which.
up.
I'm sure there have been hundreds of documentaries done on that whole trial case, and some of them horribly done, some of them decently well done. My wife and I watched one, and it really kind of exposed the relationship between Christopher Darden and Marcia Clark. Like, they actually, I think, began a romantic relationship during that.
No, who was Christopher Darden?
He was the I think the assistant DA.
Okay.
Black guy, bald hair, tall, slim.
Yeah.
That whole prosecution was just a mess. I mean, the department was bad. The players were bad. They weren't like complicit. Like, they wanted him. They knew he was guilty. They were trying to prove him guilty, but they just kind of self-destructed as a team. Darden, there was some stuff happening with him that he felt kind of from a racial standpoint of OJ, like there are questions he didn't want to ask that he was being told to ask. It was really good, but there, I come away there where there's, in my mind, still no doubt that this guy got away with double homicide. His actions later in life proved that he was not this salt to the earth guy.
Yeah.
His actions later. So, for what it's worth, the thing that really struck me when that trial was over is they were interviewing jurors, and I can't remember the specific verbiage that they were using, but here's the premise. These jurors did not know the difference between blood typing and DNA typing.
Oh my goodness.
They were saying, look, that could have been anybody's blood. Like, we all have different, similar blood. Like, well, blood typing, yes, there's 10 types of blood.
Right.
So 1 in 10 people match your blood type, meaning millions. Like, I'm O negative. I'm a universal donor.
So am I. That's crazy. Our
So
whole family.
we need to keep up with that,
Nice.
because we'd have to help each other out.
Yeah,
Like,
I
we
know.
can help everybody out,
Yeah.
but nobody can help us.
What about your wife and kids? Are they?
No,
same?
I don't think I don't know what the kids are. I
Okay.
know Jill's not.
Our
I
whole
think she may be
family
O
is,
positive. But that's a lot of HIPAA stuff I just gave out right over the air,
I
right?
know, right?
But DNA is exclusive. I mean, to a person, it's like,
Right.
and
But they
so
didn't have DNA evidence back
they
then.
did.
Oh, they did?
They did, but it was so new. The jurors really didn't even understand the implications
Yeah.
of its accuracy and ability to really say, this is the person. This is their DNA within one. And like, it's like, if there are 4 billion people on Earth, the odds of the DNA matching someone else are like typically like greater than that. Like,
Right.
This is a 1 in 10 billion DNA thing. Like,
Right.
But anyway,
to the theory that it could be his son, would they have been at that time able to distinguish between the two?
that's a great question, and that's probably where
We
where
might
these
have to look into that
conspiracy
a little
theorists.
bit. That'd be
That's
fun.
probably where these conspiracy theorists have
Because
also
his son had a
confused you,
history
Sam.
of stabbing people. That was like another thing. And
What?
he really hated OJ's wife. And like, so it was just like, it's kind of crazy. Like,
Well,
I don't know.
Here's the reason that can't be the reason he couldn't have done it then, because if he had stabbed people before, then obviously he was incarcerated on the night of the murder.
Well, like, I think he had like a past, but he definitely wasn't incarcerated on that night of the murder.
So that's it. OJ did it.
Well, speaking of-
Hashtag, we're going to put out some hi-hat. It's like,
I feel like I was out of town this weekend.
I said
on a-
slash tag.
Some
that bad?
controversial.
Did you hear what I said? I said slash
Slash tag.
tag. Slash tag. OJ did it.
Actually, that's kind of funny.
I did that intentionally because I feel like as old as that case is, we're going to have, if anybody, like somebody's going to be really mad about my opinion on that, and that's fine.
The OJ did it? That's like the popular
I
opinion.
think everybody knows OJ did it.
At least everybody thinks that.
Everybody except for OJ.
I think he thinks he did it. Unless he's like gone
Maybe
full-blown
I
Joe
dreamed
Biden.
it.
And then it happened.
I thought it was just a dream.
Speaking of
OJ.
conspiracy theories, this weekend I was out of town and I met this guy from Montana. And because we all like to be outside and do outdoors things. We talked about hunting, fly fishing. Well, this guy was a fly fishing guide in Montana, has a business, and was showing me all about this. And so he actually was from Mississippi, Hernando. You guys know where that is, which is
Just
right
south
outside
of Memphis.
Yeah, south of Memphis. So anyway, he was back there and we were chatting and just he gave me his card. And but the whole time I talked to him, you could tell he had this great love of fly fishing. Like he talked about living in the house that was actually in the film A River Runs Through It.
Oh, wow.
That means he's right in the thick of it. And
What a great movie.
like a big time guide. So he gives me his card. I'm telling my buddies, I'm like, hey, look, check out this card. This might be a trip we can all do together. And so I go back to my room that night and I look up his name. And the first thing that pops up is this story about him being out in a boat on the river trout fishing with a client. And the client goes nuts on him, apparently, and takes his fly rod, the guide's fly rod, breaks it, like in 3 places, starts yelling and screaming, hitting him with an oar, like a boat oar, and then takes the fishing rod and starts stabbing him with it. And I'm thinking, this guy, what in the world? That story never came up when we were chatting. But this guy was about every conspiracy theory you could think of. That's what made me think of it.
This isn't one of those artichokes.
Dude,
No,
no,
this is serious.
No, dude, I've been like, I literally was making glance over Yule, like,
Yeah, we're not even believing this
I'm
up till
like-
now. This is true.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
I'm about to get conned again.
He said he broke the fly rod and started stabbing him in the face with the end of the fly
My
rod.
goodness.
Yeah.
Where's the fun?
What the headline say? No
What
punchline.
are the headlines?
Hey, we had mentioned crazy stories like that. Remind me of a couple things.
That's crazy.
We had referenced crazy neighbor stories at
Yeah.
one time,
Mhm.
and golly, like we could just have an entire podcast, like not an episode, but a podcast.
Maybe that could be a
dedicated to
regular
stories
segment.
around. Let's do that. That'll be fun. When I was living in Mississippi, I had a retail flooring business. Okay, so this is probably the craziest thing I've ever seen with my own 2 eyes. I was we kind of got a cruise out early that morning, and that's a pretty intense thing to like get a couple hundred yards of carpet cut, rolled, loaded, load
Okay,
everything
so
else for
it's
people.
hardwood flooring, but it's also carpet.
Oh,
Just
we did
anything
hardwood,
flooring.
tile. I mean, you name it. If it
Yeah.
went on a floor, we did it.
Yeah.
And so if you were running a few crews out of the store in the morning, it was like pretty labor intensive, especially in the summertime, because it's hot and all this stuff. And so usually if I didn't have a customer in the store, when we finished that, I would just kind of come back in and literally just sit down, drink some water and rest just for a little bit, because you never knew what the day would bring there. So anyway, one of my installers, his dad's name was Willard. And Willard liked to just come to the store and hang out. Like it was our meeting place, drink some coffee and all this stuff. We didn't have all these fancy Starbucks in Iuka, Mississippi. So the carpet store is where you hung out.
Good for you guys.
And so Willard comes in, and I go and I kind of grab some water, and instead of sitting behind my desk, I go kind of sit in front of my desk. So if you can picture this, I'm sitting in the corner of a building that has glass windows. Okay, so I can see out, but I'm looking not toward the street. I'm kind of looking back toward things. Well, next to my store was a supermarket called Nelson's Supermarket, and I'm just kind of sitting there, and like this is like a it's across from the Piggly Wiggly. I mean, this is
so you had Nelson's, little old Nelson's.
Nelson's.
and
There
then
was
the
actually
Piggly
competition,
Wiggly.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
And you could get a few sundries at the old Dollar General right down the street too.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there looking at this supermarket, and there's a car, and all of a sudden I see the trunk open of a car, which is not uncommon because people pop their trunk with a key, right? But instead of someone being around that car, no one was around the car. The trunk just pops open.
It's OJ Simpson.
No, even worse. It was a naked man.
Oh,
what?
my goodness.
Was it Willard?
No.
Oh.
Willard was sitting right there. If
Willard's
Willard wasn't
like-
an eyewitness to this, I don't think people would believe me.
Oh, my gosh.
This guy jumps out of this trunk, and there were some vending machines in front of the thing. And I remember him, the word that I've always used telling this story is the guy scurried past the vending machines, runs around to the back, like runs around the corner of the grocery store, heading to the back. Well, this is back behind all my property too. So I'm like,
no.
"Ugh,
Yeah. So you're like,
this
you
is
have
not good."
you have an interest in a naked man who just popped out of a trunk.
And guys,
running
this
behind your building.
is at approximately 8:15 in the morning.
Oh, my
Okay.
gosh.
And I looked at Willard and I said, "Did I just see what I thought I just saw?" And Willard said, "I saw it too." So I called 911. 911, what's the nature of your emergency? I said, "Hey, this is Jewel down at the carpet store. A naked man just jumped out of a trunk over here at Nelson's and ran behind the store. Y'all need to send somebody out here after him." And she goes, true story. She said, "Was he wearing shoes?" I said, "Ma'am, I don't know. I mean, what I was focused on was not his feet."
There's actually a procedure for naked men jumping out of the car. She's got the manual open. Was he
Unit
wearing
1 or
shoes?
Unit 2? Do I send Barney or do I send Andy?
It's like, well, if he was wearing shoes, there's a law that says that you
They
That
get,
means he probably wasn't kidnapped.
they get out there,
true.
and he has made his way into some wooded area
Oh, my God. Naked?
naked.
God.
And so instead of them going in like literally like anybody should do, just walk in the woods, they bring the K9 unit out.
Oh,
I thought you were going to say they brought the full-on SWAT team out there.
If they would have had a helicopter, it would have been there. Trust me. They would have brought a tank.
Rambo going.
Had they had a tank, they would have brought a tank. So I guess when this guy hears the dogs barking, he knows this.
Oh,
I
man.
need to just come on out. So he does. I'm working by then. I don't even know what happened. Like I don't know. I didn't see him come out of the woods or anything like that. And so anyway, what had happened was the guy, obviously, as you can imagine, was mentally ill.
Oh,
and
okay.
the night before, apparently, he had gotten into a big argument with one of his parents, and he's probably mid-20s, okay? And so he starts walking away from home, just he's leaving, no real destination. And it's raining, and so his clothes get wet and he gets really cold. So he comes upon a lady's house and just kind of pops her trunk and disrobes because his clothes are wet, and he just gets in her trunk for shelter and warmth.
That
And-
is the craziest
but-
thing I've ever
Well, but the craziest thing is she was an early riser to the grocery store. So imagine this
No,
guy
she had driven with him in the back?
from her home. So imagine
She's
Oh
coming
my
out of the Piggly Wiggly with
gosh.
about 4 or 5 plastic baggies, and she's like,
imagine
"Gonna
this
go
guy's
Put my pot
surprised.
roast in the oven."
Imagine this guy's surprised. One, when the car starts moving. And two, like you don't know where it's going, and two, it pops out, and instead of him being at some other, neighbor's house out in the country,
Yeah.
he's in the middle of town.
Dude, she opens
This
that
parking lot.
trunk lid, and she's got her like groceries, and she's like seeing that thing.
So again, that's not an artichokes story. That is a true story that I saw with my own 2 eyes. That was not a neighbor, but it happened at my grocery store neighbor's parking lot.
Oh my goodness, that is a
Craziest thing I've ever seen.
That is insane. That's insane.
Sam's like, "Well, I saw myself get out of the shower in the mirror one time."
That's funny.
Speaking of crazy neighbors, at our old house, we lived up kind of in the country. It was in the city of Saudi Daisy, well, it really the address was, but it was outside the city limits. It was in the county, and so we lived in this neighborhood with. There's several houses, in the neighborhood, but there were woods all behind us. And so Clay and I, my oldest son Clay, we'd get out there, we'd shoot his 22 out there, and because it was in the county, it was fine. There's nobody behind us. Well, one day we went outside on the deck, and we had like a long, just a long piece of like grass property that went right up to the wood line. And so we're standing on our deck and we're looking out, across the lawn, and it kind of slopes down, and we see this big rabbit right at the wood line. And so, Clay and I had just been like reading a lot of like books on like, survival and skinning rabbits and that sort of thing. And I said, hey, go get your 22. We'll shoot that rabbit. And he's like, okay. I think he's like 8 or 9 years old. So he runs inside, he gets his 22, and he comes out, and we're sitting on the deck. And that rabbit's just been sitting there, not moving. And so I guess it's like perfectly content to sit there and eat the grass or whatever. So Clay gets his 22, gets it set up on the deck, and he's like resting it on the rail of the deck and just squeezes off a couple of rounds. Doesn't hit the rabbit. The rabbit doesn't move or anything. And then out of nowhere, the neighbor next door, it was this like probably 65-year-old, woman, comes across into, from her yard into my yard and starts screaming, saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I was just like, well, ma'am, we're about to shoot that rabbit over there if you'll be quiet. And we're going to, that's what we're doing. And she says, "I've been feeding that rabbit," which I guess makes, which is why I didn't run away. I thought it was
so
big. Food. And I was like, well, thank you. That makes it nice and plump for us.
Oh, my goodness, James.
And no, I didn't say that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
just
I was like,
I'm still trying to be the nice, we're good neighbors.
Savage.
Oh, we'll share.
And so this woman, it was just an older couple. Her husband was the police chief on Lookout Mountain and retired, and they bought this house up in Saudi Daisy. A good old guy, just a really salt of the earth old. Imagine like, I don't know, Sam Elliott or something had just retired, and he's like, sitting down on his porch drinking coffee. That was this guy, and I liked him a lot. He was gone that day. It was just her there, and but she just keeps on and on and on, and at me. And here's my son Clay, and so finally I was like, Clay, just go inside, put your gun away. And I just said, you know what? That's fine. And so but she just won't stop. She goes, "You shouldn't be shooting rabbits. You shouldn't be shooting back here," which was, not true because we were perfectly legal to be shooting in our backyard. Yeah. And that was, completely fine. Anyway, long story short, we end that conversation. She goes back to her house, and I thought, I'm going to go over there and talk to, the husband. I'm going to go just talk to him at some point. And so, but I didn't do it that day for whatever reason. We were busy. And so a couple days later, I'm outside and I see him on the porch. And so when he sees me, we make eye contact. He stands up. He's a really tall guy, just like he literally like an old Western, like Tommy Lee Jones coming across my, to my house. And so he's walking. He's got his hands in his pocket and he's walking. And he comes up to the almost like where the property line is. And I'm sitting on my side. He's on his side. And he just looks at me and he says, "My wife and I have very different views on what a man can do on his own property." And then he just said, and he kind of gave me this head nod and just turned around and walked back to his house.
Wow.
I was like, okay, I feel completely vindicated.
He totally threw her under the bus.
He did.
Well, he just said we have different views. That was it.
Yeah.
I had a neighbor. I'll share a crazy neighbor story real quick. It's one of our current neighbors.
Hold on. Do you want this out?
Yeah, it's fine. She's not going to listen to the podcast.
She might.
Sam's like, I've been waiting to tell this.
Yeah, we used to have a dog. I named him Wishbone after the 90s show, Wishbone, that I grew up watching. So I don't know if you ever watched that, but what's the story? Wishbone.
Was this a cartoon?
No, it was a real dog. It was a Jack Russell Terrier, and he'd go through like historical scenes. Like,
wait,
Sam,
what was your birth year?
What was my birth year?
Yeah, let me tell you what I was doing in the 90s. I was listening to Guns N' Roses, Metallica.
He was going to casinos in Tunica.
Yeah, Wishbone was probably
Wishbone wasn't it? that was just my happy life.
Yeah, I remember Girls Gone Wild. Probably watching a little bit of that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The
I hope
'90s.
not.
The '90s was not a wholesome.
That was not
time
a
for
good.
me.
That was not a good time for you.
Wasn't a good time.
My little sister liked Wishbone. I know.
Yeah.
what you're
Okay.
talking about.
All right. Good. So named him Wishbone. We had him as a puppy, and I have a little doggy door that goes into my garage from my front porch. So I would let him go in and out there. Like if he wanted to be warm and he wanted to be inside, he could. It was when he was like a little puppy. We didn't have a fence yet.
Or how I think about dogs. If you've got sense enough to be warm,
Yeah.
then come in the garage.
So he knew how to go in and out. He had food, water. I even had like a little heater for him in there so he could go curl up. It was just, I had this bougie little setup for this puppy.
Wishbone.
And my neighbor is like one of those people that probably, this is self-admitted. I talked to her. This is self-admitted that she cares more about dogs than people. That like
It's easy to do.
that we could probably be abusing our kids outside and she probably wouldn't call the police. But if this situation with my dog happened, it was just ridiculous. So I talked to her at one point and she was like really, I could tell she was really hinting that we should be keeping the dog inside because it was cold, but again, he has this very warm place to go
And
that
fur.
he knows is there. And fur.
And he's a dog.
And he's a dog. Yeah. And
Like
so,
it's-
and I was like, well, that'd be kind of my wife. She's at home most of the time. So really, that's not really up to me. This is my dog, but like my wife's going to have to deal with this dog
Jam
for
threw
8
his
hours
wife
a day.
under the bus.
You're already being more diplomatic with this neighbor than I've ever been.
So then she goes, well, if I just see him out there and I might like, she threatened to like,
Dog
she said
nap?
something about like he might end up over at my house or something like that.
She's going to dog nap him.
Exactly. And I was just like, and I can't even remember what I said, but it was like, I was just like very stunned that she was kind of threatening to, and I just said, look, we're taking care of my dog. He knows exactly where he can get warm. He is not being abused or anything. So we actually got animal control called on us. She called animal control on us.
Goodness, are you kidding?
Her claim was that Wishbone was on the front porch, and I would put him inside and shut him in the garage at night.
Yeah.
So he couldn't come out. But her claim was that he was outside all the time on the front porch, just all the time at night.
And what's wrong with that?
I know. Anyway, and it's like a lot of people like, and I don't think you should do this, but a lot of people just have their dog out on a chain in a tree like 24/7.
That's
you know?
right. I think that's kind of cruel.
I think
too.
that's a little cruel.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she was. So what was funny is when animal control came, we had a babysitter and we were away. But what was funny is I had put Wishbone in the garage so he wouldn't be bothering the babysitter.
Yeah.
So it was funny. Animal control shows up to a report that this dog's always on the porch. Wasn't on the porch.
Right.
Goodness.
So, and they said they'd come back. They never came.
They go in the
back.
garage. There's like food, water,
Yeah.
nice
Literally a heater.
a heater, a disco ball.
A disco ball.
the neighbors across the street, though, like at the curtains, are like, and she's like peering out,
So
watching them like come.
it
and
was funny because
interrogate you.
we were on the phone with the babysitter, and the babysitter said that they'll come back, and they never came back because they realized it was just I'm sure they get a call all the time.
I bet your wife
This lady.
was not happy.
She was not.
with this neighbor.
She was not. We're both, and it's funny because all the other neighbors feel the same way about her because she just kind of gets into everybody's business.
So here's a call in the police story for you. This is a joke, but it's one of my favorite jokes. Yeah. So I want to retire some jokes because I've been married to my wife now for almost 20 years, and she's really tired of hearing some of these jokes. But you get into a new group of people and company,
Yeah.
and they've never heard it, so you're like, man, I've got to bless them with this funny joke I've got. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell my jokes over time on the podcast, and
I love
then
it.
whenever it hits me to tell the joke in public, I'm going to say, oh man, I've got the greatest joke, but you need to go back and listen to episode 5.
Oh,
It's
right
in
on.
there.
There you go. What a way to do
So,
it.
all right. So here's my joke talking about calling the cops. So this lady lives on the golf course, older lady, and she's just really upset. So she calls the police. She said, I need y'all to send a couple of guys out here. I need to file a report. And they like, okay, well, what's the nature of the report? And she goes, well, just get them out here. I'll tell them all about it. So they get out there and they're in her living room in the front of the house, and they sit down on the couch, and they said, ma'am, what's going on? She said, well, I live here on the golf course. And she said, there's just men out there all day playing golf, all day, every day. She said, they're out there drinking beer. And she said, and she said, all these old men, they can't hold it. And she said, they'll just pee right there on the golf course. And she said, I just think it's crude and I don't like, I just don't like it.
Yeah, I agree with her.
And she said, I'm just right here. I can see it all. And they're like, okay, ma'am, we'll file the report. We'll talk to the people at the golf course, but just show us where you're seeing this from. And she said, it was right there when I do the dishes, right there above the kitchen sink, it's the window. And so they're like, okay, let's go in here and take a look at it. So there's the sink and they said, ma'am, there's a transom window above your sink, but it's like all the way at the top of the wall. Like you can't even see out of this window. She goes, well, when you stand on top of the counter, you can.
I like that.
So that's
that.
one of them. There's plenty more, but that's one of my favorite ones.
The Have Y'all Heard About This podcast is produced by Play It By Ear Audio. Leave us a review, like us, rate us, or subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use. If you wish to contact us or you have a suggestion for the show, email us at hyhatpodcast@gmail.com.